So if you are going to be kind of following along and want to do the same thing that Saurabh is doing, I would suggest you already sign into your Rose account. Go to rose.com/templates/monitor trending tweets. You can also just plug in tweets, and you should be able to find the monitor trending tweets template and just click on use template. And you should be able, that should pop open on your workspace. And then as we're going along, please feel free to ask any questions in the events chat. Just anything you need to say, comments, questions, concerns, just post it in there and we would be very happy to ask the question for you. So either Adrian or myself will just kind of interject and go, Saurabh, can you please pause? We have a question from Mario. So it'll be super cool. All right, so our next, in case you don't know what Rose is, so Rose is the first true spreadsheet with built-in integrations and a slick sharing experience. I could tell you more about it, but I think it's a lot better if Saurabh kind of shows you because he's really good at it. So I'll give you a little bit of an introduction to our team here who is in the chat. Adrian, if you want to put up your hand, I think they can guess which one you are. Adrian? He's smiling. There he is. So he is a video call addict. He is our CSM here at Rose, and he loves traveling and all things tech. And he's actually one of the few here that uses Discord for gaming. As I mentioned, Saurabh and I are pretty new at it, and he's the one who's like, yeah, Discord's great. And I was like, you know what? I think so. As a fun fact for Adrian, he just got back from his holiday. Today, actually, was his first day back from his honeymoon, and he was in Greece. So yes, that's Adrian. Say hi to Adrian. I guess you can't because you don't have the ability to talk in here, but just say it in your head and I'm sure he can hear it.
Yeah, I heard it. Thank you. Hi everyone. Thank you for the introduction. So now I'm going to introduce you our next speaker, Saurabh, who is our resident spreadsheet genius, no-code builder at Rose, loves pizzas to a degree that is crazy, loves to document everything, cycle, and generally work around, but it's better when it works the first time. I think we'll all agree on that. So please welcome Saurabh, who will be doing most of the presenting, because as I said, he's very good with spreadsheets. So let's go for Saurabh.
Thank you, Adria. Thanks, Ray. Love that we are doing this again. So this is something that we've just started right now. With the help of our community lead. So that's Ray. One of the things that we figured the last time we did this was we actually did not introduce Ray in the best light. So we figured this time everybody deserves an introduction here. So big hands for Ray. She's a hamster mom. She shares some amazing hamster-related videos, among other things. She drives the community at Rose. We are building our Discord right now, but of course, we're available to help across multiple different channels. Ray loves plants, a whole bunch of board games. I recall even Lego, I think, or even Yoda, Baby Yoda, if I remember that right. Futurama, and of course,
so cute,
right? Yeah, and The Simpsons, of course. The fun facts about Ray is, which I didn't know up until recently, was Ray doodles people's profiles. So in case you'd want to check her out on our Twitter, of course, please feel free to do that as well. So yeah, big round for Ray.
Thank you. Okay, so just for a little bit of the agenda. So we've just done the welcome and the intro, and Saurabh is going to just basically jump right into showing you guys how to use the monitor trending tweets template, and then we'll have time for a Q&A. So yeah, but throughout the whole experience, feel free to just chat in the events channel with any questions you have, and we will ask him as it goes along. But yes, don't be shy. We would love to hear from you, and I'm going to turn over the reins to Saurabh.
Thank you. All right, so let's get started. Just a quick, heads up again. We are recording this, and this is a slight nudge to Adrian. I'm hoping we are recording this. Besides that, I think let me just start by sharing a quick intro on the dashboard itself. I suspect majority of you might have already explored this extensively, but for folks who are potentially watching this for the first time. This is what it looks like as soon as you log into rows. I'm going to go clockwise from the bottom left. So on the left bottom corner is where you'd find our settings tab. A whole bunch of controls is what you can get here. If you want to rename your workspace, you could do that on this about tab right here. You want to invite new members, you could do that via this section. By the way, we just very recently also launched our viewer role. So in case you want to have a better identity access management, this would be the option that you can go for. Any integrations that you actually use with the platform is something that gets logged here. You could use multiple accounts from the same integration as well, and all of those would just show up here. You can manage them, rename it, delete it, etc. From this segment, you can also, of course, check your usage, based on the different cycles, your billing cycles. We actually show you a whole bunch of your usage along with the kind of functions that you're using in that particular integration. If in case you want to know usage as per spreadsheets, there's another tab for that. And of course, billing, not that we would want you to just upgrade right away. Feel free to do if you want to. But this is where you can actually see your billing information, the invoice data, and so on and so forth. This is essentially in terms of the settings tab, that's where you can go. If you have multiple different workspaces, you can actually access them here, add a bunch of different folders as and when you like it. You can change the folder settings using this segment right here. If you didn't already know this, we have a whole bunch of themes that you can actually set. So that's essentially going to change the folder color for now, but I suspect we'll have a lot more coming out of this particular feature in the future. You want to invite somebody, you can do that from this particular dashboard right here, once again. And that's pretty much in terms of what you can do. There's a very special segment right here, that's our Jarvis. I'm going to show that in a quick second once we're inside the spreadsheet. But for now, that's a quick intro on the dashboard itself. In this session, though, we are going to do a live walkthrough of one of our templates. So for that, I'm just going to go to our templates gallery right here. There are a couple of ways in which you can pull out a particular template. So in our case, we already know it's the trending tweet one. So I can just type that in and it'll show up. But in case you are just exploring what can be done, you can also just filter using a whole bunch of different integrations that we have here. So for example, I could just type Twitter, and you'll find a whole bunch of different, pre-made workflows, the templates that we have already right here. In case you want to track, Twitter mentions, you can use that. Follower growth, there's another template for that available. But in our case, we're going to use the trending tweet one. This was, in fact, contributed by one of our community folks. This is one of our community templates. You can actually go through it, later on, or even on your desktop. But at this point, it's exactly where you can click on this Use Template button that Ray was referring to. In case you have multiple different folders or potentially multiple different workspaces, you can choose the appropriate place that you want to, put this particular template in. In my case, I would just want to put this in the live building folder, and I'm just going to go ahead and hit create spreadsheet. And this is how simple, or rather, quick, easy, and painless the setup is. You actually get the entire pre-made spreadsheet right here. You have a whole bunch of instructions typed in right here as well. So in this case, it asks you to connect to the Twitter integration. So you can just click that. And essentially, if you haven't already, click on the connect button. I already have, so I'm perhaps not going to do that, but you can click on the connect button. Actually, let's see what happens, right? So you click on that. It basically takes you to the Twitter login page. You authorize the app. Actually, let's go ahead and authorize it. And it takes you back again to your workspace. Once it's done, it gives you a small and a nice little toast here. You can clear it out. But that's how you can connect almost every single integration that we have here, in terms of clicking, connecting. If there's an API key that needs to be added, you can add that. But basically, that's pretty much it. You can close that tab, hit on the next button. And once again, you have a whole bunch of instructions. Potentially, I would definitely recommend you do read them all, because it always helps to know the small trivial things that potentially gets missed either on the spreadsheet itself or when you've been showing it to your colleagues at your workspace. But basically what we'll be doing is focusing on the setup table for now. We will make sure we enter a particular keyword or a hashtag. in case you have a recommendation on the kind of topic that you want us to monitor during this live session, also please send that in the chat so that people can let me know if there's a particular topic that any of you would like us to focus on, and we can potentially check that out. Once we have done that, we can basically set up another a configurable threshold for the kind of tweets, or the tweets that actually reach a particular like count. That's something that we can set up in this template. And finally, of course, we go ahead and hit this nice little button to get the workflow automated and going. So that's in a nutshell what we would be doing, and then what these instructions say. So for now, I'm just going to click Start Using, and we can actually see what happens next. I'm going to quickly wait for a second here just to hear out in case there is any particular topics that's out there as part of a recommendation. If not, I'm going to just randomly choose something on my own. But let's see if there is something. No. Okay. Looks like
iOS 15 that just came out yesterday. There's probably a bunch of tweets there.
Gotcha. Yeah, let's do that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and say hashtag iOS15. If any of you are Apple fans, of course, let us know that as well. We have perhaps a secret silent community for that, or maybe we can create it if we don't. I'm going to set the like threshold to 2, so that I don't just get any junk tweets altogether into my table. Once I've done that, as part of this template, all you really have to do is just click this button. Just check that, and you can see that the new tweets sort of started logging down from here and below. So that's essentially what this particular template does. But let's break it down to a little more granular extent to understand what each of these functions right here on the right-hand side are actually doing. So what we call this is essentially, setting up some of the control functions in this particular part of the spreadsheet. So you have the ability to search a whole bunch of tweets. There's a function for that. We are using the search tweet Twitter function. And in this part, if you at this juncture, if you're a little curious and unsure what the hell does it really do, how do I get it working all by my own, we've recently also launched a nice little function wizard that'll help you get to where you need to be in a very, very smooth manner. So for instance, you can essentially access that by clicking on this function icon on the format bar. There's this function wizard that shows up. You can just click that. A panel opens up, and here is where you can browse through some of our featured functions already. These are think of it as some of the things that we have curated as the most important ones, or the ones that we have seen people using the most. That's what goes in the featured. In our case, we want something to do with Twitter, so I'm just going to type that out. And let's see, the one that is being used here is the search tweets Twitter function. So let's search for that, and bam, there it is. It's the search tweets Twitter function right there. You can click on that, and here is where you can basically go through the different forms and toggles and input that you have, and try and keep answering as and when you go. For instance, in this case, the query is essentially, you can also hover over the question mark, and you'll get a small note there indicating what it is that what is it that particular parameter really means. So in this case, it's the query. So I can just say equals and point it to, let's say, B1, because that's where we have the query input set up. So that's that. Let's say if you wanted to set up a type, which is to say if you only wanted the recent tweets, or maybe you already want just the quote unquote popular tweets, right? You can set that up as well. So in my case, let's say I want to do, well, we don't need quotes there, popular. I'm just going to type that out just to see what are the ones which are actually curated by Twitter itself. So I can set that up. You can, of course, set up the date. You can set up a language. Since those are optional, I'm just going to leave it as is. And finally, go back to F1 here and say save changes in F1. The moment I do that, bam, there you go, right? So in F1, the data sort of already has, surfaced. And on the formula bar, you can see that the actual function is already automatically written. So typically, what you would have done is on the cell, you have just typed equals Twitter, and now go through this particular set of functions, let's say search tweets Twitter, manually done this here, and sort of then gotten the results. In this case, with the function wizard, you wouldn't even have to do that. It's pretty much on the UI where you can modulate any of these kind of inputs. That's pretty cool, and I think that's something I'm pretty excited that's gone live in the last week, and we're hoping a lot of people try and get their questions answered by this. But I'm also going to give a quick pause here and check in with you all. Anybody has any questions in and around the function wizard? I would be happy to answer in case there are any questions. It's okay if there's not either. We can also just move on. Let's see. Yeah, not bad. We have like 15 tweets. Few rated as popular for iOS 15 here. No questions? All right. So so this is, well, essentially this is one way in which you can use this function. Of course, you can add multiple other parameters as well. And let's say you already have this function here and you want to try and edit it. You can also, once again, just click on this cell, go back to the functions icon on the format bar, click on the function wizard, and it will take you right back to where you were when building this workflow. So it doesn't have to be that only the ones created by the function wizard could be accessible. Anything, you can just point on any cell and open the function wizard and do your magic there. So that's one of the other benefits of the function wizard. So yeah, that's what this particular function does, which basically fetches a whole bunch of tweets. What we are then doing is essentially filtering a very specific set of columns, which is the created at, because essentially what you get from Twitter is a whole bunch of other metadata. So you get the ID, which I suspect not everybody would need in their particular workflows. You get the URLs, you get a whole bunch of user-related data, and so on and so forth. So you can actually just cut all of those down. If that's noise to you, you can just remove them and say, okay, just filter these specific columns or these specific data points from that particular JSON. And that's what this particular filter columns function does, which has already been set up. So in case you don't really want to get into it, feel free to ignore this part right here. But that's what this particular function does. And finally, of course, it's encapsulated by an if function, because a spreadsheet is not a spreadsheet unless you have a bunch of ifs taking care of everything in the backend. So you have an if condition here. It checks whether or not we are actually starting to track, and only then triggers the Twitter function, which is quite nifty if you think about it. It's very smart. And that's this particular function, which is the search tweets part of it. Next is the ability to, of course, automate and keep refreshing this at a particular frequency that we can set up, which is where our schedule function kicks in. In case some of you may already know, that's part of our unique uniqueness as a platform, is you can run these kind of cron jobs, these kind of time-based automations based on the workflow once you have set it up. So you don't have to come back and click on a particular button or drag the formula all the way down or copy paste any of these things manually. None of that jazz. Everything can just be automated using one simple function right here. And once again, if you want to experience how to set this up, I'm going to use my function wizardry skills and go to schedule, check in here. It asks for what kind of a task is it that we want to automate. In this case, I would just say equals, well, that's the function or that's the particular task, which is the entire formula fetching the tweets using Twitter, right? So that's the task that I want to enlist. And of course, once again, the schedule frequency. Now here, you might wonder, what are the ways in which you can set up the frequency, right? So we have a nice little article, which is available here. Just give me a minute. And these are some of the examples. So you might want to keep refreshing the data every, X minutes. perhaps every 2 hours or maybe 10 hours or whatever frequency there. You can set up it in a whole bunch of different variations right here. So in our case, I'm just going to say every day because that seems like the simplest one. And in case you want to set up a time zone, you can actually set that up as well. So I'm in India. I remember discussing this. Adrian was supposed to intro that part, but I think that got skipped in the mix there. But yeah, I'm actually joining in from India. So basically, what I would do is I would type in UTC plus 05:30. And unfortunately, that's actually the example in the tooltip that's available too. So yay. But essentially, you can type in the time zone that you are in and click add function. Oops, looks like there is some kind of an error, and that happens. That's okay. Let's see. Was it the everyday at 0900? No, that isn't it. What am I missing? Let's check that again. UTC plus 05:30. Let's see. Is it to do? Okay, so it's perhaps not every day. I suspect I'm making an error in the syntax part of it. Let me actually just change this to every hour. And there we go. Okay, my bad. That was a syntax error. We don't actually have an every day, I think, directly. And you may actually encounter some of these things, and it's always good, once again, and I should have done this, was to actually go through this article, make sure we get the right kind of frequency, and then use that. So in our case, I think I'm just going to choose the every hour one. That's sort of okay. And yeah, that's essentially how you can schedule a whole bunch of different tasks in your workflow. And that's what this particular function, or rather the formula, is doing in cell E2. And finally, we have an update function among other that's actually taking care of actually taking the JSON data and pushing it to your tweets table, right? And this is true for almost all the different workflows that we have. There is a main function which actually fetches the data or is gathering all the information. And then we have another function which basically takes that particular blob of data and then pushes it to a destination table. So let's break this down. So one thing that we do here is actually check with the JSON. So we filter the JSON to indicate that, okay, you may have, let's say, X number of tweets. So you have 100 different tweets that you have fetched. However, I don't want all those 100 tweets. I would rather only get tweets where the like threshold, which is the favorite count, is greater than or equal to whatever has been set up in B2. So in B2, we have set it up as the count as 2. So that's what is happening with this particular filter function. And that essentially reduces from 100 to I think about 5 or 6 different tweets. And finally, we have the update function. In case you haven't gotten a chance to work with our update function, it's a pretty cool database related function, if you will, wherein you can actually specify a key which acts as a unique identifier for a row and make sure you don't have duplicates being added in your destination table, and it does a bunch of other things as well. So you can use the update function, set up a destination here, and that should be it. In this case, we also use an IFERROR, which is essentially a fail safe in case if anything goes out of array, basically doesn't compute anything and shows you a small little text. So that is in terms of this particular template. I'm going to once again quickly pause and check in with the rest of the audience. Any questions? I see we have a couple new joinees. Happy to also give you a quick run breakdown here. But in case anybody has any questions they would like answered, I'd be happy to. Okay. All right, no much questions there. I think the other important thing, which I suspect Ray promised it to a whole bunch of our audience members, wherein you could also check for a whole bunch of tweets or even the trending tweets from your own account. So this is, I would say, a very good chance or a time rather where you can explore a whole bunch of other Twitter functions as well. So potentially, once again, you can go to the function wizard, type in Twitter, you check out a whole bunch of different functions that we already have. In this case, you can also use search user tweets Twitter, right? So what this particular function does is it actually checks for tweets from a particular username that you type in. So let's say if I do Rose HQ, for instance, and let's say add function to F3, give it a couple seconds, let's go to all data, and bam, you have about the recent 100 tweets that Rose account has made out. So you can actually once again entirely replace, for example, this particular function. Let's see if it works. I have a hunch, so I'm not too sure. And there you go, it actually does work. So now what's happening is basically it's taking in Rose HQ as the input, or rather it's fetching tweet from the Rose HQ account, checks for the like threshold of greater than 2, and only those tweets are the ones that is getting updated. So you can get the kind of trending tweets based on a certain threshold from your own accounts as well, or any other accounts that you manage. You can practically do that. So that's one of the other ways in which you can use this. But yeah, I think this pretty much concludes the session in terms of the template, in terms of the power of our Twitter, different functions from the Twitter integrations. We also, of course, have options where, in case you have specific workflows that you'd like our help with, me, Adriana, or a bunch of other folks, we're happy to sort of jump in on a call and help you set these workflows up as well. But
go. Perfect. Do feel free to send me any feedback you may have on these sessions. It's really just the three of us kind of throwing this together. So the more feedback we get, the better, and we'll make it amazing the next time. But yeah, thank you so much for joining. We hope to see you next time. And please do feel free to stick around on the Discord channel and be a part of our community. The three of us are there quite frequently, and we love hearing from people. So yeah, it'd be lovely to hear from you again, and thank you very much.